Ladies and gentlemen, our first fight of the evening is scheduled for 6 rounds in the super featherweight class. Your referee in charge of the action at the sound of the bell is Sharon Sands. Introducing first on my left, in the blue corner, wearing the blue trunks trimmed in silver, weighing in at 128.8 pounds. From Huntington Beach, he brings a record that includes 3 wins with 11 losses. Give it up for Guadalupe, Beach Boy, Arroyo! His opponent on my right, in the red, dancing in the red corner, wearing the black multicolored trunks, weighing in at 127.2 pounds. From San Diego, fighting out of the arena. He is perfect in 4 professional fights, all 4 by knockout. Give it up for Mario Matador Ramos!
As we look at the tail of the tape, Mario Ramos, 9 years younger at age 18. That's not always an advantage when you have a teenage fighter, unless he has come into his man strength. We won't know for sure until this fight gets underway, but the physical advantages definitely go with the younger man.
Yeah, and the Matador in the black trunks with the San Diego Padre logo on the back. One thing you notice immediately, Doug, not only tall and lanky, also a southpaw.
Yeah, the physical advantages are with the teenager. Obviously, just judging by the records, Ramos brings the power. Guadalupe Arroyo, he brings experience and maybe maturity. At age 27, Lupe is not old.
Yeah, you know, Arroyo's one of these guys, certainly has an upside-down record at 3-11-1, 1-10 in his last 11. But keep this in mind, in 14, 15 professional bouts, he has scored no knockouts, but he's also never been stopped. Let's see if Ramos, who is 4 up, 4 down on his record, can get some quality rounds in tonight here at the Avalon.
Yeah, and I think that's the objective of the matchmakers of this bout. It's time to see how Ramos looks when he has to go the full distance.
Good body shot there by Ramos. Ramos has that, Doug, that classic puncher's build. Tall, lean, lanky with that long torso. Seems to get pretty good leverage on his shots there.
He's what you call an explosive thin man. And he's got a great frame and physique for a featherweight. And he has the right style to take advantage of his height and reach. We'll see if Arroyo is able to test his inside skills. Ramos does have some inside game with his body attack. Those are some nice short inside punches to the body, delivered by Ramos. He's got a good foundation, nice technique, and he's very relaxed in there, Steve. Not in a hurry.
In his last bout, Ramos scored a first-round knockout of Oscar Quezada. There's a good uppercut on the inside.
He likes the uppercut.
And you can see Arroyo certainly shaken up here at the end of round number 1. We are scheduled for 6 here at the Avalon in Hollywood, the 2nd edition of Hollywood Fight Night.
And Ramos is not bothered by any of these haymakers from Arroyo. He's not bothered by the unorthodoxy of Arroyo's style.
So, Doug, we heard the big news earlier today, and Tom Loeffler commented with Cynthia Conte about this to open up the show. The IBF champion at middleweight is now vacant. There really is no champion. Gennady Golovkin has been stripped. I guess Sergey Derevchenko now in the catbird seat. Your thoughts on that decision by the IBF?
I don't like it because Gennady Golovkin hasn't done anything wrong. He was in training and he was scheduled to fight his WBC mandatory, which is Canelo Alvarez, on May 5th. It's not his fault that that mandatory fight did not come off. Canelo Alvarez was not able to fulfill that bout because of his suspension due to testing positive for clenbuterol. Why punish Triple G? It doesn't make sense to me.
The IBF came down with the ruling today, and I believe that the highest rated available contender down the list from Derevyanchenko on down, which includes the likes of Charlo, Jacobs, and Demetrius Andrade, are all in the running to fight for that vacant title.
There are good fights to be made in the 160-pound division. I just wish that a real champion didn't have to be stripped of his title for those bouts to happen.
See Arroyo now trying to crowd Ramos. Now, Arroyo is a familiar face to the audience here. Back on March 27th, during our first show in this venue, he lost a 6-round decision to a Luis Rosales.
He gave Rosales a good fight, too, if memory serves me.
But again, you know, he's one of these guys, despite the record, Doug, and again, it is 3-11-1. It is what it is. He does give you rounds. Keep this in mind. He has never been stopped. Now Ramos coming forward, digging on the inside.
I tell you what, I think Arroyo is in tougher tonight than he was in March because Ramos has size and power and leverage on his punches that I think Rosales lacked. Rosales was a good, solid technician, and we'll see him later in this card. Ramos has a lot of natural talent.
Yeah, you can see Ramos coming around the corner with hooks to the body, and then he opens it up with uppercuts right down the middle, mainly with his left hand. See, again, there's a left uppercut to the body by Ramos.
Arroyo snuck a right uppercut in there, though.
Step back and come back. No, step back and regresa.
Arroyo's fighting spirit is still intact. He's taken some hard punches from Ramos, but it hasn't dispirited him yet.
Well, you know, if you said to me, Steve, what is Arroyo's best skill? I would say the ability to survive. He has a lot of guile, a lot of savvy in there. And at times what he'll do, his technique is so bad it actually works for him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's kind of hard to predict because his style is so awkward and unorthodox. And then just when you think he's in total survival mode, he tries to surprise you with an offensive burst. So the young up-and-comer facing him, he can't afford to fall asleep in there. He's got to stay focused. And that's a good lesson for a young fighter.
Ramos grinding away on the inside on Arroyo.
Yeah, he's working in there. I'd like to see more combinations from Ramos, not just one shot at a time, though.
And that's the end of round number 2, our opening bout here tonight at the Avalon. Mario Ramos undefeated, facing the experienced Guadalupe Arroyo. And Doug, also Tom Loeffler told Ms. Conte that Gennady Golovkin is holding firm on the fact that he's not taking 35% of the financial cut against Canelo Alvarez, but he is going off a 50-50. Going to a 55-45 split. Doug, in your
good
opinion,
news. Yeah, that's some leeway there.
Do you think that is progress?
Yes, I do think that's progress. And I hope rational minds prevail in these negotiations. I hope the negotiations continue, even though Oscar De La Hoya has made some announcements that Golden Boy is negotiating with Eddie Hearn to make maybe, possibly, if they can't work it out with Triple G, a fight between Canelo Alvarez and Daniel Jacobs. That's not a bad fight, but I think the bigger fight and the best fight for both fighters and the sport of boxing is the rematch between Golovkin and Alvarez.
Here we are at the Avalon, round number 3. Mario Ramos, tall, lanky southpaw in the black trunks, taking on the experienced Guadalupe Arroyo with the blue with the white trim.
He likes that right uppercut. I'm sorry, left uppercut. This man is a southpaw. He just lets it go. That was a nice shot to the midsection. It looked like Ramos was aiming for the breadbasket, for the sternum. And when you're facing a guy, a tough veteran who's got a solid shin, it's good to test the body. And not just the liver area or the stomach, but the chest area. Ramos is trying to do that. Ramos has not once neglected the body. And I think it goes without saying the first 2 rounds have gone to the Matador.
I'd say already, Doug, this is a pretty good experience for him, given the fact it's been 4 relatively quick knockouts for Ramos, just 18 years old. I always speak about professional resistance, and I think that's one of the reasons why guys like Arroyo are so valuable for the development of young boxers on their way up the ladder.
They serve a purpose. Couldn't have a sport without them.
Yeah.
Couldn't have prospect development without tough scrappers like Lupe Arroyo. I'm glad Ramos is going back to his right jab and working that stick. You don't want to fall in love with your body work when you don't have to. And maybe working his jab might sort of encourage Ramos to string some combinations together, because he is falling into that pattern, that habit of loading up with 1 power shot at a time.
Well, Doug, we're about 30 seconds away from being halfway through. It's going to be interesting to see how Ramos deals with the second half of this fight. He hasn't been a lot of rounds, given his early record and the fact he's been able to blow guys out. Let's see how he swims in relative deep waters against a very experienced, cagey veteran.
Can you see any fatigue in Ramos's body language?
No, I really can't. I mean, listen, 3 rounds is still a relative sprint, though. But if we get to rounds 5 and 6, it will be interesting to see if Ramos can keep his technique and his fundamentals together. And there it is, the end of round number 3. We are scheduled for 6 here. The second edition of Hollywood Fight Nights, brought to you by 360 Promotions of Tom Loeffler. And Doug, to go back to the Canelo-Golovkin situation, I think the reality is this. I think Canelo is the A-side. I don't think 50-50 was ever realistic. However, there is that reality for both men, Doug, just given the numbers, and we all know the numbers, we all know the pay-per-view results of what they've done in the past. This is the biggest fight for both men currently.
There's no doubt about it. Listen, Canelo Alvarez has to be considered the A-side. He's one of 2 active stadium-level fighters in boxing. It's just Canelo and Anthony Joshua. That's it. Everybody else, at best, they're an arena fighter. Gennady Golovkin is an international attraction. He sells out arenas in multiple regions, multiple jurisdictions, but he's not quite at the pay-per-view level of a Canelo Alvarez or the ticket-selling level of a Canelo Alvarez. But he's up there, and when you combine the 2, it makes for the biggest event possible in boxing, maybe outside of a Joshua Wilder fight.
And I believe last year's pay-per-view event did right around 1.4 to $1.5 million pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, I think it was 1.5.
Yeah, I think with the animosity, the story that surrounds it, much of the conflict. And last year, 2 major markets in Texas and South Florida were affected by hurricanes.
Yeah, and don't
that
forget,
probably took away a couple 100,000 pay-per-view buys.
Don't forget about Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor.
Yeah, he had that little event there a couple of weeks before.
And that was 3 weeks before. And you know, that could have impacted the first pay-per-view. I wouldn't be surprised if this rematch can be made for September 15. I wouldn't be shocked if it did like between 1.8 and 2 million pay-per-view buys.
Oh, I thought you'd say you wouldn't be shocked if they did a rematch between Floyd and Conor. Okay.
Well, that's possible too.
Yeah, I don't want to give him any idea.
No, I don't either.
Doug, you asked me about 2-3 minutes ago, do I see any fatigue on Ramos? You know, as I see round number 4, he does look winded. His mouth is wide open, breathing a little heavier, and his punches seem to have a little bit more drag to him.
Yeah.
So this is part of the process.
He's lost some snap.
Yeah.
And I was noticing that towards the end of round 3. Having said that, Ramos has clearly won the first 3 rounds. Okay, you could see his mouth is open. Yeah. He's visibly trying to suck in air as he's letting these punches go. Again, he's throwing power shots. He's landing power shots. He's winning this fight. He's not putting combinations together.
You know, if you were to ask me,
and I would say the technique has diminished just slightly.
Well, Lombardi once said fatigue makes cowards of us all, and if it doesn't, it certainly affects your fundamentals. You start to see it start to unravel just a little bit. But Ramos is the superior technician. If you were to ask me what is Arroyo's skill, I would say his skill is being tough. That's why matchmakers continue to use him.
Yeah, it's his physical durability and his fighting spirit. He is defiant. He's a defiant opponent. He gets his jollies off of taking these young guys the distance and being pesky in there, being difficult. He likes that. There's pride in that for him. You know, he says to them or he says to himself, you couldn't wipe me out like you did those other journeymen.
The one thing I am noticing about Ramos technically, he is starting to fall in after he punches. He's not maintaining that good solid distance as a taller fighter who's lankier from the outside. That is certainly to me a sign of fatigue and a good body shot. In fact, may have been too good because it may have been in Baja. That was a low blow.
Underneath the belt line. I don't think it was intentional.
And that ends round number 4. Once again, we have 8 bouts tonight. This is the first one between Mario Ramos and Guadalupe Arroyo. Our main event, junior lightweight contender and a 2-time challenger for the lightweight titles, Denis Shafikov takes on Hector Ambres Suarez. In our main event, also on the bill, 2-0 prospect Brian Sabayo, who is the first signee of 360 Promotions. He participates in a 4-rounder, and also the crowd-pleasing Sergey Boachek, who trains with Abel Sanchez out there in Big Bear. He is also taking on Cesar Berumen. And looking across the ring, I see a couple of the pupils of Abel Sanchez and Murat Gassiev and Alex Cholo Salcedo ringside from us, Doug. Gassiev has a big fight coming up. I think it's going to be in late July for the World Boxing Super Series final against Alexander Usyk. Doug, I think that's one of the best current matchups on the calendar.
It's for all the marbles in the cruiserweight division. What's not to like about that? You got 2 guys who are undefeated, who have looked sensational in recent bouts. They're both dual world title holders. The winner of their fight will be the undisputed cruiserweight champion.
According to Aegis Klimas, the manager of Usyk, the venue has not been determined for that particular event, so stay tuned for more details. And as for Alex Salcedo, he'll be on ESPN July 30th. He'll be fighting, or excuse me, June 30th in Oklahoma City, kind of a homecoming bout against Lenny Zapovania. Now, Doug, I think that's going to be a very good fight.
Excellent fight. As Lenny Zappa has been around a long time. At one time, he was a championship-level lightweight, so he should test the young up-and-comer. And Zappa's not an old guy, just like Lupe. He's 27 years old, so he's not an old man. He's still got some spring in his step. And still trying in there.
You know, Arroyo's a seasoned guy. He's fought coming into this bout 8 fighters who were undefeated. So he's certainly been through the mill very early in his career. And now he is, I don't know if it's fair or not, typecast as a trial horse, the type of guy that you got to face as a young guy. This has certainly been a good experience for Ramos to get to at least the middle end of the pool.
Absolutely. Because when a prospect is in a fight like that, that's where you get to see his flaws.
Right.
And you see where improvement is needed, and then you go back to the gym and you know exactly what to work on. It could be conditioning. It could be, okay, lack of focus, or my jab dropped off, or I wasn't, putting punches together enough, or whatever it is. You can look at that fight and be like, okay, I need improvement in these areas.
Yeah,
but you got to go rounds against somebody who's in there making you work in order to see where you need improvement.
Well, Doug, we do a lot of shows at the developmental level. There's a pretty good body shot there from Ramos, bending over Arroyo. So Ramos sticking close on the inside, digging shots to the gut of the hard-nosed Mexican, who's certainly been very pesky.
It was smart for Ramos to focus on that body because Arroyo's chin has proven to be solid.
And Doug, I got to tell you, Arroyo is still sneaky, throwing an occasional counter shot. And the one thing Arroyo's not doing, he's leaving that chin very open at times. His hand placement isn't very good defensively.
I agree, and I think fatigue is part of that, or maybe just Arroyo has not been able to hurt him so far in the bout, so he doesn't respect the power of the opponent. And we see Ramos pressing the journeyman against the ropes and really concentrating on the body, both sides of the body, lefts and rights to the chest, to the stomach, occasionally grazing the head of Arroyo. Not easy to land clean punches on Arroyo because his head and upper body are always moving. He's always rolling with punches.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise in here. This is the 6th and final round.
So let's see what type of finishing kick this young man, Mario Ramos, coming into this bout. 4 wins, 4 knockouts, but for the first time being extended the 6-round distance by the cagey Guadalupe Arroyo. In 15 professional fights, he's never scored a knockdown, but he's also never been stopped. So, Doug, pretty much this fight has gone to script from a Arroyo standpoint.
And that's good for Arroyo, and it's good for Ramos. Ramos needs to go the distance. And I like that he began the 6th round.
Another good body shot.
Hey, you know why he was able to hurt him with that shot? Is because he started this round boxing from a distance, so he's able to get more leverage on those body shots. He needs to work on his defense a little more when he's pressing a guy to the ropes. He could take the punches of Arroyo, but as the caliber of his opposition has stepped up, he's got to be careful about leaving that chin exposed.
Well, Doug, I don't think there's any doubt. This is a byproduct of the fatigue. His hands simply are not coming back up high enough defensively.
I think that's part of it, but I also think that Arroyo just doesn't have enough power to make him worry about it. There's a lot I like about Ramos. I like his commitment to the body, perhaps the best. But he's definitely got the frame of a formidable featherweight. He's got fighting spirit. He's got a lot of poise for such a young man. Oh,
and that's it.
The stoppage.
Wow.
Well, I think Arroyo could have gone the distance, but kudos to Mario Ramos. He keeps his KO streak alive. 5-0, 5 knockouts.
And he was certainly made to work for it by Arroyo, who now suffers his first stoppage loss. But we wondered what was in the gas tank so deep into this fight for the young 18-year-older out of San Diego, and he's able to hurt him to the body and did enough to really score the stoppage. And he runs his mark now to 5-0 and his 5th stoppage.
I like what I saw. Ramos was working hard, but he was pacing himself the entire time. There's definitely room for improvement, though, which is to be expected when you're talking about a guy who's, 4-0 or 5-0.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. Tonight was a bit of a reality check. When you have these early knockouts, many times that's a product of matchmaking, good managing, soft opposition, and you can almost create a false sense of security. Tonight, I believe that Ramos really learned something. This game is going to get difficult. All right, so let's go up for the official word. Let's send it up to ring announcer Mike Hart.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Sharon Sands calls a stop to the fight. 1 minute 35 seconds of the 6th and final round. Your winner by knockout and still undefeated, Mario Matador Ramos!
All right, so there you have it. That young man getting his hand raised in victory. Mario Ramos remains undefeated, running his record to 5-0 against the game Guadalupe Arroyo, whose record now drops to 13-3-1. And in a few moments, Cynthia Conte will be talking to young Ramos.
I think Ramos has a bright future.
Yeah.
Time is on his side.
Yeah.
Just 18 years old.
All right, looks like we are all set up. Cynthia, we'll send it up to you.
Congratulations on the beautiful stoppage. What did you think of this fight? Okay, you went toe-to-toe with him every round. Did you think you were going to be able to knock him out, or just were you surprised that you were able to stoppage by the ref?
I was surprised I stopped him by the ref. It was one of my first tough fight, so I feel good about it.
Did you expect him to be this tough tonight?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Now, what do you want next? I mean, what do you want next in your next fight? What do you want?
No. Nah, not really. I was just going little by little, making it to the top. Just taking my time.
You know, I was watching you. You both landed clean, hard, tough punches. Were you wondering why is he not going down yet?
Yeah, I was like, damn. He was pretty tough, but I don't know. We just both went at it, and that's what people wanted.
And your fans? You have fans here tonight? You know, we are streaming this all up. I don't know.